and by having a relationship with that God that's based on faith and love and not duty and obligation. You see, God was saying to his people, I want to be close to you. Not far off and removed, not distant and impersonal, not cold and austere, but as close and as intimate as we can possibly be. It's like God was saying, so I'm going to put part of myself inside of you, even inside your heart, so that we can know each other that kind of way and have that kind of relationship with each other from this time forward. What a different way of knowing God. I am not in any way putting down the relationship that people can have with God through laws and commandments. The Jewish people to this very day have that relationship. I'm not putting that down in any way. In fact, that's part of our history and part of our tradition, to know God through his laws and his commandments. But God himself was saying, the day is coming when you will know me in an even deeper way than that. And it will be from your heart to my heart. I mean, it even goes so far where God says, you won't even have to teach your children about me. They'll know all about me. I'll be in their hearts. He says, you won't even have to have schools for your children because they will already know all about me. Can you imagine that? I mean, the imagery of knowing God that well, that thoroughly, that truthfully is hard for us to grasp, isn't it? I mean, every Sunday that I come into the pulpit, one of the first things that I am confronted with on Thursday when I'm writing the sermon is this accurate? Have you done enough research? Are you respecting the text? Are you being truthful to it? And I struggle with that every week. Not just me, every minister of the gospel struggles with that. And here God is saying, oh, we've moved way beyond that, Barry. Even the children know all there is to know about me. That day is coming when I will be that well known. From your heart to God's heart. You know what I'm asking this morning? I'm asking you if you have ever found God in your heart, and if you really know him from the inside of your heart to the inside of God's heart. Do you know him that closely, that intimate, that thoroughly? There was once a certain man in the church that I served before I came here who came forward at the beginning of worship one day and said, I'd like to join the church. And I said, that's great. And I said, can you tell me what there is about this church that makes you want to join it? And he said, this is the first church I've ever been a part of where I actually felt God has come inside of me. Now, those were his words. God has come inside of me. He said, I've gone to churches all my life, but this is the first time, Barry, I've ever felt that. And so I said to him, well, how did you make that discovery here? And he said an interesting thing. He said, it happened the very first Sunday that I came. You had just finished preaching, and then there was a lady who stood up and sang a beautiful song, and then communion was served. And he said all of these people were getting up out of their pews, and they were coming down around the table, and they were receiving the bread and wine of communion. He said there were the children who were coming forward, and there were older people who had trouble even walking down to the table. He said there were married people, there were single people like himself, and he said I was watching all of them, and they were all so focused on that bread and that wine. And I said, well, what do you think that meant to you? And he said, they had something, even those children, they had something I didn't have. Something that I was looking for, something that I wanted in my life. And I said, well, what is that? What do you think they had that you were wanting? And he said, I had religion. They had a relationship. He's not the only one who's ever felt that in his life, is he? It's easy to have religion. That's really easy. But to have a relationship with the living, breathing Christ, with our Creator, that is a different matter. Have you lost that intimacy with the one Jesus called Father? Was there a time in your life when you felt deep within your heart that God was with you and for you and inside of you, but for one reason or another, that's not how it feels for you today? Or maybe you're not sure that you've ever been that close with the one who created you. John Wesley didn't know God in a personal way through many years after he was even ordained a priest in the Anglican Church. For years he had been a minister in that church over in England. He knew all about religion. He knew how to conduct services and preach and dissect the scriptures. He knew all of the rest. But he had never really met the Lord inside his heart.